Africa is 1 billion people. There's 400 million Africans living in cities. What that means is that the total number of Africans living in cities is greater than the number of people living in cities in Europe or North America. And about 65% of Africans live in informal settlements. So you're looking at a massive expansion of a mainly young population in urban systems, which at the moment provide a significant amount of food. Given the significance of informal settlements or slums on the African continent, the challenge is what's the future of these areas? Some policymakers talk about the eradication of slums, which basically means forcibly removing them. Others talk about the formalization of these slums using traditional urban systems, which will cater for the needs of a relatively small number of those people. So the real alternative is what we call incremental upgrading of informal settlements, which is really about figuring out ways in which people living in these settlements can be involved in community constructed infrastructures.
The work that I was involved in started out with a specific focus on sanitation, but very quickly the focus kind of broadened because sanitation is really at the heart of the energy, nutrient and water nexus.
The challenge, the risk that we are facing is that people, they're always being lazy of taking care of their food waste, which sometimes ending up in blocking the toilets that we are using, which that as well, it affects our health because the toilets are blocked and are overflowing all the time. Then even on the side of the road, you can find food, even the skips, which that it creates some sort of growing of rats and other stuff which are getting to our houses, which can affect us with diseases. The beginning of that is here, which is the food waste, which is not controlled by the residents.
We installed a biodigester as part of our technological configuration. The biodigester essentially drains the toilets, so it's fed from human waste as part of the sanitation upgrade, as well as food waste, which is generated from the cooking processes in households in Enkanini, as well as manure. And the waste that is treated in the biodigester produces biogas, and this biogas has become an incredibly valuable input in terms of supplying the cooking energy needs of households in Enkanini.
If you're able to generate a revenue stream from, in particular, the biogas, then you have a sweet spot that connects the problem of sewage to a productive output that adds value. Basically, the best definition of transdisciplinary research is interdisciplinary research undertaken by people from different disciplines who collaborate with societal stakeholders to co-produce solutions to real-world problems. There isn't a clear-cut research question in advance, and it isn't clear in advance exactly what research is required. So it starts off as an exploration. And that is very different to the traditional academic research approach, which tends to be focused on systems research rather than solutions research, and tends to be extractive rather than collaborative.
A transdisciplinary approach to this research was desirable from the point of view that sanitation is an incredibly complex phenomenon involving many perspectives. However, we realized really quickly that transdisciplinary methodologies are developed in much more egalitarian societies, and trying to employ them in South Africa, where there's a huge degree of inequality, not just in wealth, but also in education and in power, it meant that we couldn't get municipal officials, technology experts, and informal settlement residents around the same table trying to develop a shared solution. So instead of trying to assemble these kind of partnerships, we decided to focus our energy on working with informal settlement residents.
The real test of the validity of the method is the building up of knowledge and capacity within the community itself.
There are people who are from the community who are skilled in terms of how to continue with that. Even myself, now I know how to take good care of food waste. Even myself, I know how to unplug the blocked toilet. Even if the process comes to an end, that the students are not involved anymore, people, they can continue their own because they know exactly ins and out of the project.
The biggest challenge is that it requires a level of embeddedness and immersion in the local context that can start to cross the line between research and activism.
We've been told we're not service delivery agents, we're researchers, and we have no business implementing.
I think the way to resolve that is to broaden our definition of research.
We need to be very careful about how we showcase what we're doing. We are not doing service delivery, we're merely experimenting, but experimentation cannot be solely in the domain of words. And that experimentation needs to take place in the field. In situ innovation is what is required.
Once there's been this process of immersion, engagement, joint problem solving, the researcher has to come out of that context, out of the community and back into the academy to reflect and write and become much more of a researcher and less of an activist. And that transition is just as difficult as the beginnings of entering into the process.
It's been difficult to leave Enkanini. I feel like if I were to walk away from this project right now, it would be a waste in a sense of the last few years, because we've only just begun the inquiry and we've yet to really discover what these solutions look like. Letting go of these relationships that we've worked so hard to create would be an absolute bummer. Transdisciplinary research is high risk. I think anyone about to embark on it needs to know it doesn't fit into the neat timeframes of ordinary research. You're going to have to invest in relationships. Probably you're going to have to implement something. But I think without transdisciplinary research, we've got very little mechanisms to deal with the complex challenges that we're facing.
It is absolutely essential that researchers move out of their traditional ivory tower critique-based systems orientation to a solutions orientation in their research. In an area where we have knowledge poverty, it's absolutely essential that researchers become agents of change.